Hello seniors, thank you so much for listening today. This flipped lesson will give you a little bit of more information on how to work through your research investigation since you're the only ones doing it this year. Alright, as you all know, we've been working on this research investigation and you'll finish it this year. Whether you're at HL or SL, you must undertake a personal dramaturgical research into an unfamiliar theatrical practice for the production of a play or theater piece. Well, what does that mean? So you've been researching, that's your dramaturgical research, into a theatrical tradition, culture, or historical practice, such as bunraku, Greek theater, Roman theater, commedia dell'arte, Balinese shadow puppets, whatever your selection may be, something that we haven't studied in class, for a specific production of a play in that style. For instance, you could research Greek theater and be studying Oedipus, which is exactly what we're going to do in this unit. So that could be the play that you're applying it to. You should select a specific aspect of the play or theater piece from that chosen theatrical practice to research. So, if you were going to be doing Oedipus, and you say you might be interested in researching traditional Greek masks, you could research traditional costumes, and that's what you would research. So you're picking a specific either staging convention, could be how would a director approach blocking a play, or how would a set designer create a realistic set, how would a costume designer design period costumes, onwards and onwards, okay? So once you've chosen what I'm going to call A, your theatrical practice or cultural or historical theater practice, you've already chosen your cultural historical theater practice, okay? So that should be done. That should be an easy question to answer. The next thing you should have already done or be very close to doing is deciding what is the area of theater, design, directing, etc. that you plan to focus on. And the last step, the one that some people usually forget, is what is the play, text, or chosen theatrical piece going to be that you're going to apply your research to. That's the most important part. You have to apply your research to a specific play or theater piece. Now you may ask, why is that important? Well, it's one thing to, say that bunraku was performed thousands of years ago in Japan, and this was how it was traditionally done, and this is how it originated, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't have a play to apply that information to, you're going to be lacking a direction of focus. So it makes a big difference when you can say, in a traditional staging of Romeo and Juliet, at the Globe Theater, they used the balcony and it became an integral part because the reason there's a scene on the balcony is because there's a balcony in that theater. So how in our modern interpretation or our classical interpretation in a modern stage would we create that effect and be as true to the original as possible? That's really what they want you to do. Now, it's important to note that at the HL level, your research investigation, when it's all said and done, is 2,000 to 2,500 words with supporting visual materials. Now, what does that mean? 2,000 to 2,500 words, all your own ideas. Quotes don't count. Captions don't count. Supporting visual materials is any sort of image. You can refer to a video production. They want you to show examples, but you have to cite those things. So don't forget that when you're looking through your sources, okay? At the SL level, students are required to produce 1,500 to 1,750 words with supporting visual materials. Again, quotes do not count, captions don't count. Now let's take a minute and formulate our research question. Now first we have to use a questioning word. The two most popular words to begin your research question are either how or what. All right, now I've broken this example question using how down into 3 parts. The first part in white, using techniques of theater of the absurd. Okay, we clearly have part A, their theater practice, their cultural, historical theater practice. Okay, theater of the absurd. Okay. The second part breaks down what area of theater. Okay, this one's a performance one. How would an actor characterize Rosencrantz and Guildenstern differently than the other characters to portray the absurdity of their situation? So this student was researching theater of the absurd and how to characterize absurdity, okay? And the play they chose was Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which is marked in green. So I've marked A in white, B in yellow, and C in green, okay? Let's try that again with another question. Okay, the second example. What is the role of the puppeteer in the play Johann Doktor Faust, done in the Lutkov Divadlo tradition of Czech puppetry? Wow, I've never even heard of Czech puppetry, but boy, doesn't that sound interesting. All right, I'm going to provide you with a couple more examples, and let's see if you can break them down on your own. Now, I've provided you with 3 questions. Go ahead and see if you can break them down and determine which parts of the question represent A, the culture or historical theater practice, B, the area of theater, and C, the play text or theater piece. Okay, let's talk about the next thing past students of mine have really failed at with the research investigation. You have to cite your sources. I will tell you again, you have to cite your sources. If you don't do that, you automatically will receive a 1 or a 2 as your highest grade. So you really have to, I'll say it again, cite your sources. Now, the easiest way to do that is when you are doing your research and pulling out significant ideas or support from those things, automatically write where you got the source, write which source you got it from, and write the page number. That's going to save you about half an hour of work if you do it right away, okay, at the minimum. The next thing that's important to do is to go ahead and write down the bibliographic information. Now, the easiest way to do this is to use Citation Machine. Now, for those of you who haven't used Citation Machine before, you just go to this website, you click what format you want to put your citation in. I'm assuming you're going to use MLA, but you may use any other one you're familiar with. And you choose the type of source, a book, a magazine, a newspaper, a website, a journal, film, or other. Now, if it's a website, you can do autofill mode, where you just put in the website address and search, and it will locate the website for you 99% of the time. Or you can do manual entry mode, which is very simple. It just is one more step in terms of you inputting the information, but it asks you exactly how to fill it out. You press find my citation or something like that, submit, and it will automatically put it together for you for your bibliography. Now, as you can see, I've gone to the website here, and website's right here, and it will ask you to choose your style. You click the button, and this right here breaks down exactly how you input all the information. It's very, very user-friendly and easy. If you have questions, you can always come see me. Now, let's talk again about HL versus SL. We'll be doing this sort of last of all, but you have already been compiling your bibliography. Now, at the HL level, so this is just for Megan for this class, she's got to write a critique of sources. Now, you can see that, and I can provide examples of that, but basically all you're doing is, after your bibliography, you're writing a paragraph that is commenting on the reliability of the source, the helpfulness of the source, and what the source provided. The difference between that and an annotated bibliography, which is what I've asked students at the standard level to do, is and in an annotated bibliography, you're just going to write the bibliography citation, and then below that, a short paragraph of what the or what the source contains. For example, if you're researching Romeo and Juliet, you'll have a citation that will provide the information for that copy of Romeo and Juliet. So now I've brought you to an example of just the citation of the No Fear Shakespeare edition of Romeo and Juliet. All right, in green, you will see the text, "This edition of Romeo and Juliet provides a full copy of the play as well as a side-by-side translation of the text into modern English. Also included are a character breakdown and a scene index." That's an annotated bibliography. Very simple. You even could do it as you research. You create a very brief description of what the text provides. Now, in addition to what I wrote in the annotated version, what's in white would make an excellent critique of source. So, for instance, you would include the green text, which provides your annotation, your basic summary of what the source is, and then you critique it. While the source's ability to break down the text is very helpful to an inexperienced reader, this text does not indicate which folio the translation is based on, nor does it provide any credentials as to the translator, John Crowther. However, SparkNotes is a trusted brand and may be deemed reliable on that standard. So I have critiqued the source. I've said why it's not, maybe the greatest source. It has some faults, but I have said why it is a reliable source without saying this source is reliable because. Nobody likes that. Try to avoid this source is reliable because. Now, I've noticed as I read this that I have a grammatical error, so I'm going to change that and highlight it so you can see the corrected grammatical version. So I just took the preposition out of the end of the sentence. While it's very helpful, blah, 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 this text does not indicate from which folio the translation is based. In any case, I hope you understand how important it is to, once again, cite your sources. Now, hopefully, you all have done most of that work already in terms of formulating your research question and starting the process of creating your bibliography. Now, according to IB, the findings of the research investigation should be presented in an essay format with supporting visual and/or textual material. That includes quotes or images. At the HL level, the requirement is 2,000 to 2,500 words plus visual documentation and/or textual references. At SL, the requirement is 1,500 to 1,750 words plus visual documentation and/or textual references. The linguistic register of the work should be formal in nature, no first person, okay? It's a scholarly paper. And the work should be clearly set out as a research investigation. That means titled, sourced, and attributed, okay? Again, cite your sources. While working on the investigation, students should consult a range of sources, whether that's a book, a website, a scholarly journal, videos, images, charts, graphs, whatever you can get your hands on. The more diverse your range of sources, the better. If you can get your hands on a primary source, that means a source that was written at the time of your piece. So, for instance, Aristotle's The Poetics, if you're working on Greek theater, would be a primary source. The play text is, generally speaking, a primary source, okay? As well as secondary sources, any sort of criticism written thereafter. The bibliography accompanying the investigation must reflect the range and depth of the student's research and his or her understanding of what is useful to a theater practitioner. So your bibliography includes everything you have used to understand the topic, not just your cited sources. Now, this is the difference between a works cited and a bibliography. Your works cited, whenever you have to do that for a class, which is not for this paper, is only a list of the sources that you actually referenced in the paper. Whereas a bibliography includes every source you ever used to research the topic of the paper, whether you cited it or not. So a bibliography will contain a works cited, but a works cited will not contain a bibliography. Hopefully that was a little bit clear to you. Now, it's important to note that in the next few slides you will see an exemplar of a research investigation, but I usually post them from time to time on our GCIB Theater WordPress page. So if you need an example of an excellently written RI, you should check there, and if you don't see it there, ask me to send it to you. All right, so by now you should have gathered the vast majority of your sources, and that's what the first part of this year is for you, primarily outside of class, is finishing your research and preparing your outline. So obviously, once you finish gathering your sources, you can outline, and your outline is due September 16th, so you've got just 3 weeks to get it done. Now, the good news is that if you do your outline the way that I suggest that you do it, when you go to write your paper, you will have very little to add. You'll just have to expand on your points, but you'll have done the majority of the work. But before we can get to actually writing the outline, we need to prepare our research, okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is to review the sources that you gathered last year. And for each source you've gathered, I want you to walk through the source with the following information, okay? Part 1, what pertinent information did you learn from this source, and how does it apply to either A, your cultural theater or practice, B, your area of theater, or C, your play text, okay? It's one thing to read a biography on William Shakespeare and learn all about theater and the way they produced plays in Shakespeare's time. That's great. That gives you information about A. All right? Now say you want to learn a little bit about staging. Maybe you've read a book on set design, or Peter Brook's The Open Space. That would give you information on your area of theater. So that would be B. Whoop. Okay, and C obviously being the play text, and you might have read, in addition to the actual script, some criticism on the play. Well, that's great. That provides you with C. So it's very important that you take a moment to notate what you learned from that source. Okay, so that's going to be the first question you're going to answer about your source. The second question is going to be, what was the primary finding, argument, or idea about this source, okay? So if 1 was a topic, okay, 2 is really a little more of an expansion. Think about it as 1 to 2 sentences, okay? So let's use the biography of Shakespeare, okay? What pertinent information did you learn from this source? I learned about Shakespeare's time, theater in Shakespeare's day. Okay, great. What was the primary finding, argument, or idea that source reported? Perhaps it was the fact that Shakespeare didn't really write his plays, which is one argument. So it's going to tell you a little bit about the bias. Ooh, let me zoom in. Okay, it'll tell you a little bit about the author's perspective. Okay, which will help especially in the critique of sources. Okay? Now what I'd like to do is go back and learn a little bit about what's one quote, okay? So in number 3, This requires you to pick an actual piece of information out of the text that you may use. Now, you might choose to pull a whole paragraph out, one sentence, whatever. The larger the chunk, the more you can refine it. Once you've pulled it out and you put that source away, you may never find that again. So I wouldn't say, you need to type up a whole page, but get down to any section of text that you think you might use, okay? Now, as I've been saying, extract it and cite it, okay? If you take the time to cite that quote now in this step, you won't kick yourself later, okay? So, that's what you're going to do. This is if it's a text source, okay? Step 3 and 4 kind of go in tandem. If it's not a text source, if it's an image, okay, just make sure you get the citation, okay? You need to, in addition to providing that citation, write a caption. What is it that chart, graph, picture shows, okay? It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't even need to be a complete sentence, okay? Moving on. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. 3, 4, and 5 are all the same thing. If it's a video, again, what do? Our favorite thing. We need to cite it and provide a brief summary. Again, 1 to 2 sentences of what the video is, so that when you're going back later and you're looking at the process, you can understand what you gained from that video source. Now, bear with me. I'm going to go back so I take all this written text out for you. Okay? And finally, for each quote that you do, you need to write in your own words, and I cannot stress how important that is, but in your own words, a topic, sentence, argument, or idea that your quote provides evidence for. Okay? So, let's summarize. Sorry. We're going to use the example of this book, Stage Management by Lawrence Stern. All right. Now, in this book, there's a chapter called Characteristics of a Good Stage Manager. So, say I was going to look at stage managing whatever period of history, whatever text. That would be the topic of the pertinent information. All right. So, this already covers area B that we talked about, my theater area. The next thing I've done is to write in 2 sentences what the author's purpose, argument, or point of view is. And I took part of this from the summary of the book, that first quote, Practical Manual on How to Stage Manage in All Theater Environments. And then what really this book does is just skip any of the philosophy of the job, how it came to be, and it's a working manual for stage managers. So it gives you a clear understanding of what this source, what the author's intent was, and his purpose in writing. So here I have pulled out my quote for question number 3. While making light, sound, costume, and property plots, you might find it useful to make some notations on ground plans, property, preset diagrams, and area lighting diagrams at the same time. It's a quote I might use to talk about stage management and the expected jobs, and how a stage manager might perform his duties, or how I would recommend that he or she perform his duties for whatever production I'm talking about. And now I've included a chart, which was provided in the book as well, and I've listed my caption to the side. I've also included in the picture, you can see the caption the book uses. Now, you don't want to plagiarize their caption, but you can use that as an indication of how you may want to structure yours as well. There are a few forms your outline can take. The first being a bulleted outline form, as is shown in the image on the screen. Secondly, a Roman numeral, numeric, and alphabetical type. is another excellent way to organize your outline. Some people are more graphically focused, and they might prefer a bubble or brain concept map way of outlining. This is another graphic selection of an outline. So as you can see, there are many ways that your outline can look, but what's important is that the information is present, clear, and understandable to you. That's it for my presentation on how to outline your RI. Our next step will be for you to outline it and turn it in. I've also included an exemplar, which will also be on the portal, but I'll go through and click through this now. Feel free to pause the presentation at any point to continue reading this example.